that the agenda of this meeting be approved.
Thank you, Ian. Seconder? Thank you, Cynthia. Any objections? Okay, seeing none, then we will carry that. Now we have a set of minutes there. Or just reference materials. Sorry, see it. Are there any trustee items? Okay, seeing none. No presentations. Information items. So we have the 2021-2022 quarterly financial report. So our third quarter. And we have Danielle and Elena.
Yeah, so I'm going to let Elena speak to this, but before we get started, Elena's going to speak to the quarterly financial statements and also the budget information coming up shortly. But I just wanted to mention this is her third time doing the GRE. So it's awesome. Every time she's doing it, it's getting better. And I also wanted to mention coming up, this is our first time doing our preliminary budget with the superintendent, secretary, treasurer, and finance director. So yeah, so it's very exciting. First time we're doing this all together. I just want to mention that before we get into it, we underwent a very collaborative process to do the budget. And I can say I feel pretty certain that all the senior staff feel pretty comfortable with where the numbers have come from and what makes them up, because we all went through an exercise together. So I think the process is going to improve as we go through it, but I think it's already pretty good. So I feel pretty happy with the way it's going. But anyways, I'm going to turn it over to Elena to speak on the quarterly financial report.
Thank you, Danielle. So I should share my screen. I would like to share the quarterly financials so that everybody look at it while we talk about it. So this quarterly financial report for 9 months of school year 2021-22, ending March 31st, has been submitted to the ministry in April, and it represents our revenues and expenses broken into operating fund, special purpose fund, and capital fund. So the column on the right shows our budgeted amounts to compare with. So with revenues of 49.9 million and 51.6 million in expenses, the district is on track to meet the amended annual budget amounts and not spending more than we budgeted for. 1.3 million of transfer from operating fund to the local capital is part of budgeted deficit, and it is fully funded from a budgeted appropriation of accumulated prior year surplus, 3.0 millions. So this has been reviewed by the admin council, senior staff, and presented to the submitted to the ministry. That's all. So there are no questions, so that concludes.
That's the end of it.
Yeah.
Anyone have any questions? I see none, so thank you.
Stop sharing.
Then it kicks me out. Okay. Okay, so that brings us to discussion items, which there are none. So then to action items. So we have the 2022-2023 out of province and international education fees. Who's going to speak to this? Faisal? Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're proposing no changes to our fee structures. Over the last 3 years, we've done some modest increases, but for next year, we're proposing no changes. The out of province fee is a moving target that was proposed prior to me being here, and it goes along with federal fees. So right now, it hasn't changed. We haven't gotten the new amended fees, but it reads the amount of about $12,000. So that will change when the new fees come out, but all the rest of the fees should be the same. I think our sheet, you have it. Do you have the? This is just a snapshot of the fees.
Yeah, we've got the attachments
Oh.
here.
Perfect.
So there is as Faisal said, no changes to it, the same, and we have a recommendation there if anyone's prepared to do that.
Just a quick question. I did a little look online and it looks like our fees are pretty in line with all of the other districts across the province. Is that true?
So our homestay fees are the highest in the country.
I did notice that.
Yeah.
But
The second highest being, so Squamish and Pemberton are 1,200. The second highest is 1,050, which some other districts have. We're a little bit on the high side in Whistler, highest in the country in Whistler. I'd say within 10% of the next highest regions, but we are the highest still in Canada, but very close. We try and keep aligned in BC as a rule.
that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
How are our numbers looking for next year?
Good question. So we're robustly coming back. Really happy with our return. Our limiting factor right now is homestay. Our limiting factor is not international demand, which is really quite telling of the kind of product that we offer as a school district. So I feel really good about where we're going to be in the next few years. I think we're in a blip, kind of the great resign blip that happened over the last 2 years. But I think in the next 2 years, we're going to be in a really strong position from both a homestay position point of view and from a recruitment point of view. So feeling really optimistic about maintaining our numbers and having a really robust comeback. So we're expecting a full load next year.
I got a quick question then. How do we go about recruiting for homestay?
It's a good question. So last year, the senior management knows we went right to the bone. We went right till September to find the last homestay. What's happening right now is many people know that there's a demand. So they're kind of sitting and waiting and saying, oh, we'll make our plans for the next year. And then in August, we'll let the district know. And that's really hard on our program. So we've offered a number of referral incentives, prize incentives, where if you sign up by a certain day, we've offered some prizes. We're recruiting. The best single recruiting method we've done is a direct email through our district to our parents. We've tried everything from farmers markets to being at the grocery store to those and door knocking. They haven't been particularly successful. So referrals, good word, and direct email has been really positive. So we're going to continue that.
I'll just interject to say we also have been maintaining right on our district website and all websites where it's it's called the flash page where it has the carousel of images, and one of those consistent images and is information about becoming a homestay parent with a description, the fees, who to contact, etc. So we've also done, or I should say, National Department has also done campaign times through local media as well, in terms of ads in the paper. So I think, with the support of our communications officer, Jen Morris, have, really tried to take advantage of any and all means to drum up business and just to connect back to why our homestay payment is a little bit higher than other places is for that reason as well, as incentive to encourage folks to become homestay parents. Thank you.
The problem we're having is universal across the country. Right now, we are 30 short for September, only in Squamish. We're at quota at Whistler and Pemberton, but we're 30 short for September, and we were in a worse position last year. So we did hit our mark. Some districts actually turned away students in September, 40 students in September. So we will not let ourselves get in that position.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are all over it. I think it's the price of housing and the cost of living and nobody has an empty room.
Yeah, and we're really shifting the narrative to experiential rather than, so the outreach piece. So we're trying to, that's going to take time, but I think that word will get it.
Okay, thank you. Were there any other questions?
Rebecca, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you remind me, Faisal, what the proportion of out-of-province students are? I'm going to guess that it's few, but how many kids do we have coming from within Canada but out of province?
It's less than 10 per year.
Okay,
Very
pretty
few.
small. Okay.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, there's a recommendation there.
I can go ahead and make that recommendation that the Finance Committee recommend the Board of Education approves the 2022-2023 international fees schedule as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Anne. Any objections? Seeing none, then that is carried. So that brings us to the first reading of the 2022-2023 annual budget and bylaw. Danielle?
Yeah, I'll let Elena speak to this. Just overall, just want to mention that we were very conservative with our budget. So I'll let Elena go into the details around that. So go ahead.
Thank you, Danielle. Let me share the screen. I'm not sure, should I share? Like, I will share. So like Danielle mentioned, we are trying to slightly change this process, like budget development process, toward more collaboration. So partner group meetings is still big important part of it, and school alignment meetings with the principals is also big important part of budget development. But now we are being even more collaborative at the district level as well, trying to. So the budget presented here is first reading and best estimate for 2022-23 school year until students are counted in September. So right now, it's a very conservative projection, so student enrollment. And based on this conservative projection, ministry announced preliminary operating grants. So our revenues are extremely conservative as well. We expect students student count will go higher in September, but for this first reading for the preliminary budget, we keep it down. School service alignment meetings and partner group meetings help us to understand priorities and alignment of services. And admin council reviewed the district level budgets and made changes in order to present this balanced budget for next year. So operating funding from the ministry is 55 million. And this is preliminary, like I said, and expected to go up in September. It's based on very conservative enrollments. So international student enrollments is based on confirmed registrations. And it is budgeted higher than current year preliminary budget, but lower than final budget. In international enrollments. It may go up if finding homestays is not an issue. If you find more homestays, the enrollment, international enrollment and revenue will go up. Special purpose funds from the ministry, 7.6 million. And it's very close to our actual amended annual budget current year. And with all other revenues and grants, the total operating budget is 69.2 million. There is a 2.1 million of prior years surpluses, use of prior year surpluses to fund 2022-23 budget. This is 2.4 million less than current year amended annual budget, and the same, approximately the same like current year preliminary budget. allocation to schools are mm, a little bit less than our amended annual budget for this year. And this is mostly because even so, the number of students are close to those that are September 2021, but it's a little bit lower because not all special purpose funds are calculated, allocation is calculated to allocate to schools. So some like French grants and classroom enhancement grants and also community link grants are still at that central level. It's expected to go back to schools in September when we count students, and no 2021, 2022 actual numbers in September. So this total allocation of revenues of 69 million leaves us with 218,000 of unallocated contingency. It's a little bit lower than we normally budget for, but staff are comfortable with this contingency due to number of estimates, very conservative estimates and assumptions made for this budget. If you look at the details of Schedule B on a agenda package, it's better. Okay. So there are 13 pages of it. Are like, I'm not sure which one to pinpoint right now, but maybe I will move this. So some to highlight some high level of changes on the operating and staffing side of these details. I have to mention that there was an increase in staffing and elementary counseling, 0.9 of elementary counseling, and also increase in learning services, 0.7, which is 0.4 vision teacher, and 0.3 FTE instructional support teacher coordinator. So other increases in staffing, the biggest was 2.2 FTE in transportations and ground services, which we hope to fulfill these positions like drivers. We also always been short of bus drivers and ground services. And we also have temporary position in HR support at 0.75. And there was also increased 0.2 instructional leadership team. So there were some decreases. The biggest is 1.2 FTE in custodian services. So we are close to back to pre-pandemic level of custodians. So 29 FTE of custodians we had in 2019 amended annual budget. And right now we have 31 compared to 33 last year. We are still figuring out how to keep a day custodian for schools available. So other than staffing changes, there were some operations increases and decreases. For the most part, they reflect, some of them just purely match their grants confirmed by the ministry. Just to match the grants, we put expenses. So that's why there is a decrease. It's not decrease in services to students. It's just a preliminary budget to reflect operating grants currently confirmed by the ministry. But there were some changes. The biggest one was in education. There was a construction program that normally budgeted between 500 and 700,000 for the last 2 years. So it discontinued. So the construction has been complete and it's not part of the budget anymore. Another decrease was again in custodian services, because there was decreases in staffing, so there was a decrease in operations as well. And the same with international education to reflect lower number of students. So we have lower number of operating expenses of international department as well. Some increases included education again, so that leadership, educational leadership and student leadership, 115,000 increase. Like, let me it's F2. Let me jump there. Not sure, should I follow what I'm saying? Or everybody's following? Not quite sure, because it will take some time to jump up and down. So this is operating fund increase. And there was also increase in learning services in occupational therapy, physical therapy, and educational technology support to fund cloud migration and security. And there was also 20,000 increase in governance for upcoming elections. And 18,000 was increase in utilities to reflect like natural regular increase in utilities cost. That's pretty much the biggest increases and decreases so far. And like I said, unallocated contingency with all this increase and decreases is 280,000, which we expect to come closer in the fall to 1 to 2%, like we normally budget for allocated contingency. But for this round of budget process, staff feels comfortable that this is reasonable contingency under circumstances. If you have any questions, or if public has questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elena. I again want to really appreciate the work of the finance department, and it really was a pleasure going through this as staff. We certainly learned a lot. One of the pieces I did want to mention is again to be conservative and just we felt it was prudent to maintain the current level of sick leave provision. So prior to COVID, that was at 800,000. And we increased that to 1.3 million, so a $500,000 increase. And I'm very glad we did, because we have had to make use of that. And to be prudent, we are maintaining that 1.3 million next year as well. Now, hopefully we don't have the same level of need, but we felt it prudent to capture that. So that did go into our consideration of running a little bit of a lower contingency. Because we wanted to ensure that we had that buffer in there. So I wanted to point out that, and just a little more clarity around the OT and PT part. So if folks recall, when Phil Clark, our Director of Instruction for Learning Services, spoke, this was a contractual requirement from the increase of OT and PT that is required in the district. And we felt it prudent to increase that service because it is the service students need. And we feel that intervention at the OT and PT level actually not only provides a better learning experience for kids, it actually lowers costs in the long run, because you're doing the intervention when you need it through specialists rather than other measures later. So again, we felt it was important to increase those OT PT services going forward, given the students and the needs that we have. And those would be looked at every year, and depending again on student need, you will see changes as we move forward, depending on what the need is. And that's the other reason why we increased our monies towards the vision teacher, because there's increased need in that area as well. So just to clarify some of the changes that they are based on student need. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. If I may add, I forgot to mention that part of our operating expenses or some sort of, it's a ministry cost recovery that increased compared to previous years. So it accounts almost to 300,000 recoveries for the digital services, my BC maintenance, and also some pools of funds for legal cost and new generation network. Those has increased over the last couple of years, and we have to incorporate them in our operating cost without cutting out services from students.
Thank you, Elena. Were there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I just have a quick one, if I may, Rebecca.
Yeah, go ahead, Celeste.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Elena. Again, I love when you point out the differences for us. It's always so nice to hear the reasons why. And the one other thing that I just wanted to mention, following up on what Chris was talking about with respect to sick leave, my presumption is that the changes in the Employment Standards Act may also affect the sick leave budget as well, because every employee, not just permanent employees, will have access to 5-6 days per year. So presumably increase in allowance for that would be a result of changes within that act.
Yes, thank you, Celeste. This is an important new change that many districts are right now trying to calculate or estimate how much of impact we would have going forward. We haven't calculated our impact so far, and this, of course, will be reflected in the second reading in June.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? If not, then there is a recommendation there.
That the Finance Committee recommend the Board of Education give first reading to School District Number 48, Sea to Sky, annual budget bylaw for the fiscal year of 2022-2023 on Schedule A as presented, pursuant to the Section 113 of the School Act, RSBC 1996 C, copyright, 412 as amended from time to time, called the Act.
Thank you, Cynthia. Is there a seconder for that? Thanks, Ian. Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, then that is carried. So that brings us to the 2022-2023 annual facilities grant. Is Ian with us? Is that his beep? Thanks, Faisal. That's perfect timing, Ian. We're ready for you. You're on mute, I think.
Well, as you say, this is like Batman technology. In and out of just from another meeting.
Sound like Darth
Ian,
Vader.
Ian,
Ian,
just so
you-
you know, you sound like Darth Vader again. Do you remember that one time you sounded like that with me on? Yeah, I know. So do you want to just leave and come back? Like, yeah, thank you. Or maybe it's the headphones.
Is that better?
Oh, there we
Yes.
go. Perfect.
It's got something to do with these. Okay. Hi, everyone. Nice to see everyone. So this is our proposed spending plan for the annual facilities grant. So it's the funding we get every year from the Ministry of Education for repairs, general repairs and maintenance to all of our facilities. So it's not, the fund is ever evolving slightly, where we get a little bit more every year. And so this year we are receiving $980,275. That's our district's allocation of the annual facilities grant. Last year we were 960,005 or something like that, or 965,005. So we did get about $20,000, $15,000 or $20,000 more this year. And then we have distributed those funds throughout facilities based on project needs. So again, we've got a pretty comprehensive list. We're trying to pare it down. Some of it is redundant. If you've had an opportunity to look at it, there's a number of security system upgrades at a number of schools. So we've got that ongoing at most schools, actually. Some were done and some just need a little bit more work. So that's a continuing theme throughout the spending plan this year. The larger ticket items this year are we're going to do some field repairs and drainage upgrades to the Squamish Elementary playfield. This was in conjunction with the school farm project, somewhat that there's an area of the Squamish Elementary's playing field that has been in need of repairs for a number of years. And so we're committing quite a bit of money this year to fix that and provide year-round accessible play space for kids. So the zone we're looking at does tend to flood seasonally and also is affected by the tide. So we're improving the drainage and creating an area that would, like I say, be accessible year-round. And then the next larger item is the fix-up repairs to the portable classrooms at Pemberton Secondary. And I know that Brianne has a bit of budget that she was going to contribute towards this, but we're earmarking $100,000 to go into those portables for interior finish, refresh, flooring, optimizing the HVAC if we can get enough life out of the existing units. We're also waiting on final pricing on a number of the projects that are identified on the list. So every year with our annual facilities grant, we have some flexibility where if the numbers come in under what we've allocated for one project, we can use the surplus of that project to go to another project. So we have some flexibility with our annual facility grant funding, which is really great. It's a super program, so we can use surplus from one project into another project on our annual facility grant every year. So it works out great. I won't go through all the project lists. It's fairly clear. But if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, just a clarification or just the under GHE CanPOI structural repairs. What is a CanPOI?
CanPOI, canopy.
Okay, sorry.
I'll make sure the spelling is correct when I submit it to the ministry. And so we have the benefit of this is now being submitted through the MyCap system online. So I better make sure the spelling is correct. We don't need that coming across, but I think I took grade 12 about 4 times. So you never know.
I love it. Quick question for you, Ian. I see we have the Blackwater Creek Teacherage demolition and grounds repair 10,000. So I thought the demolition was covered under our insurance.
No, we did not get insurance coverage. That building was not covered through our SPP as it was vacant. So that was not, we didn't receive any funds for that.
Okay, thanks. I got some other information on that, but thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, no worries.
Were there any other questions? Okay, hearing and seeing nothing, then we are looking for a recommendation.
Okay, I will go ahead and make the recommendation that the Finance Committee recommend the Board of Education approve the 2022-2023 annual facilities grant as presented.
And I can second that.
Thanks, Cynthia. Thanks, Ian. Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, then we'll consider that carried. Do we have any questions of clarification from the public? Okay, so there are no questions of clarification. So then I see that we have completed the business of this agenda and this meeting is now adjourned. And thank you, Ian. So that brings us to, we'll be closing this and our